Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers of 3.2 TV. I am Manoj Dara. So there was actually a big announcement which has come in March, wherein investment banker Citi is actually betting on the blockchain-based tokenization of the real-world assets, and it is actually estimating it to reach $4 to $5 trillion by 2030, Herman. So what is your assessment on this?
So basically, this projection by Citi comes not as a surprise to anyone who knows about tokenization in the industry, because we are witnessing a very exponential growth in tokenization. Essentially, tokenization started just from a real world assets, from a real estate kind of perspective.
Okay.
So imagine when you talk to someone and say that, okay, I can turn illiquid assets into a more liquid assets. I can improve the accessibility to those assets. The first thing that you think about is, okay, it's real estate, right? I need my house in a more liquid form. But now, over the last 1 year, a very interesting use case has been formed where things like even patents are being tokenized.
Fantastic. IP, right? That's what, yeah.
Intellectual properties is being tokenized. Imagine how broad it can be used if one mobile provider has an intellectual property right of some technology which he can rent out through tokenization and NFTs to other mobile providers.
Fantastic.
So the kind of liquidity, the scale of accessibility, it's amazing, right? So virtually anything can be tokenized. If Sachin Tendulkar is selling a bat and you are a very big fan, you cannot buy the whole bat. What you do is you create a group of 10,000 people just like you. You buy that bat by pooling your money together and owning 0.1% of that bat. You have the feeling of being the owner of that bat.
Fantastic.
And the bat rewards to everyone, right? So that's the kind of potential, which is why Citi has said that, $4 to $5 trillion is very achievable market size for tokenized assets. Primarily the assets that are included are, securities, debt assets, gold assets, carbon credits. Even carbon credits can be sold through tokenization.
Fantastic. Harman, you mentioned about Sachin Tendulkar on its birthday. There was a radio initiative about its NFTs as well. So hence remembering Sachin Tendulkar on his birthday. But you mentioned about patents and the way forward. You gave an example about mobile technology, about patents and IP rights. So the patents is related to one other segment which is actually huge in this world. We're talking about the pharma sector, who is actually having more than, say maybe around, say maybe $500 billion worth of patents with them. So how, what can what is your assessment as far as the entire pharma segment, how they can benefit with this tokenization?
So we have seen a lot of new projects coming in the agri-tech space, right? But most of them have been focused on the traceability of goods.
Fantastic.
Right. So obviously, when you want to establish a proof of origin of any goods or assets, let's say if you want to establish the organical behavior of the asset, that it's actually worth the food that you are eating. For example, Starbucks implemented a coffee supply chain to give trust to its users that the coffee that you are buying from is actually coming from this particular place and it is of high quality, right?
So this is all about the user experience, Harman. Better user interaction, better user experience, better credibility, better brand building. This is what the main intention of tokenization is.
Exactly. But apart from that, better transparency is the key word here.
Fantastic.
Because eventually you don't know the kind of shoes you are wearing right now if they are actually from Puma or not.
All right.
And if Puma is able to prove to you that, okay, every shoes that you buy, I can make sure that they are my only shoes. There's no counterfeiting. Imagine that. And this is just a goods and commodities language. There has been a case study where US government has been using this for countering the terrorism.
All right.
So the social security that they have been issuing, they are trying to build it on a blockchain network to ensure that, okay, terrorism is not there.
Fantastic.
So it has a diversified application specific to farmers in terms of intellectual property as well. If we look at the number of patents sitting in the industry, just sitting idle on people's research papers and computers, it's humongous, right? Huge. And if those patents are accessible to other people, if they are visible, if we know that these patents exist, other companies can at least license them out and then buy them for some time to drive innovation further in particular sectors.
Fantastic. Since we're talking about initiatives to take things forward for the common man and its impact for the entire industry, recently gold tokenization, you mentioned about several sectors, but recently gold tokenization has crossed $1 billion, and Bank of America's analyst has wrote in a note that tokenized gold provides exposure to the physical gold, which is actually 24/7 real-time settlement, which doesn't include or involve any management fees and no storage or insurance cost. So, as Indians, we know that we want gold, but there is always a concern अगर कोई चोर घर में घुस के अगर गोल्ड ले गया. So that fear factor is already there.
So if we see the current scenario, जो sovereign gold bonds हैं, if we are buying the sovereign gold bonds, what are we doing? We are buying gold stored somewhere else, and we are just buying an ownership paper of it, right?
Okay.
That paper can be misplaced, that paper can be mismanaged, that paper is exposed to a lot of manipulation or central party authorities. Essentially, tokenization is just replacing that paper.
Fantastic.
And imparting a lot of trust that now, rather than that paper, you have public and private key on the digital network.
Right.
You have a key on the digital network, which makes your ownership of that asset completely transparent.
Fantastic. So, Harman, you mentioned about we are talking about gold and its tokenization drive. So before this tokenization in gold, there were only three methods. It's like ETFs you can purchase in futures. India में we can buy an MCX पर ले सकते हैं हम लोग, और या तो physical जाके खरीद सकते हैं. तो how can tokenizing the precious metal increase liquidity and enable investors to rebalance their portfolios quickly and efficiently? That is something which is very challenging.
For normal people who don't trade gold on a regular basis, they see the rates changing in yearly basis. Exactly. But when you have a close look on the precious metal industry, the rates change every day.
Exactly.
And that also at a very big level. Like, for example, gold is currently standing at 52,000-54,000, and it started from 46,000 in the year start or before that, right? So we people having the Indian mentality, we see that, okay, gold come hai, we buy and then we hold it for long term. But for regular trading, we are not into it. Why? Because liquidity usme nahi hai. If we want to buy gold and sell gold, we need to go through a vendor, right? You found a local jeweler, you give to him, he sells, then gives you money. Usme bhi dar rehta hai, paise kab milenge, kab nahi milenge, right? But when you have it digitally, let's say you know that, okay, this particular piece of gold is sitting there, I'm buying that gold and I'm selling that gold right away. That is the kind of transformation that the industry is witnessing with tokenization.
Fantastic. And since we're talking about tokenization, you correctly mentioned that it is a process of putting ownership of a tangible asset such as precious metal, अभी हम बात कर रहे थे gold के बारे में, on the blockchain, and which offers the convenience of buying and selling these assets round the clock. Because of the transactions that doesn't involve the traditional broker, you correctly pointed out. But how the industry is placed to take advantage? We are talking about gold. You spoke about real estate. I mean, there are a lot of price fluctuations in that. Real estate, there is something. Say for example, in US, there is a recession fear and a rising interest rate environment. So that will impact the real estate sector, or maybe a fear factor or a recession factor can impact or maybe inflate prices in the gold. So how a common man can take advantage safely in this segment and asset class? That is a big question mark.
Right now, the currency that we are buying, that's all backed by gold, right? Have we seen that gold anywhere? We just trust a system right now, and the inflation that we are exposed to, it's not in our control. What happens is, when gold tokenization and the $1 billion of asset worth, market cap that you mentioned, which was actually stable coin based out of gold, was a currency, again, just like rupees or dollars, which are backed by gold or other assets, and then shown that, okay, this gold actually exists and this is the currency that represents it.
Fantastic.
What happens in that case is, the person, number one, has the liberty, the flexibility to change the currency in different other formats if he requires, if he wants to protect himself against inflation or other parts. Number two, buy and sell depending on his own needs without any restrictions, without any control by any third party. Let's say in a recession, what happens is, there's a pros and cons of everything, but in a recession, what happens is, let's say the government caps your selling of gold at certain point. You cannot sell more gold than this, or you cannot buy more gold than this. That cannot happen in a digital world. You have complete liberty of that. And number three, if anything happens is, you are responsible for your own actions. That's a satisfaction as well. for a person like me that I am not, getting in loss because of actions of someone else.
So you mentioned about putting a restriction on gold. So women are usually very happy when हम दो हमारे दो का एक इनिशिएटिव था वो तो बहुत खुश थे. अगर गोल्ड पे रेस्ट्रिक्शन डाल दिया तो आई थिंक पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा गवर्नमेंट में. That is something which we have to watch. But one last question before we let you go. So how levels of security, authentication, ease of transaction and transparency can boost the growth of blockchain in the banking and financial services markets globally? We spoke about several sectors. You spoke about airlines, ticketing, real estate, and how this banking sector can take advantage. Harman, if you can just highlight that.
So I'll just give you two examples. Number one, the Citibank only, the report they released, right? Apart from this, what Citibank has done is recently they implemented a letter of credit system on the blockchain platform called Corda, and they reduced the issuing time of letter of credit by 90%. So
Wow.
if they used to issue a letter of credit in 10 days, now they are issuing it in 1 day using blockchain technology. Why? Removing the paperwork and automating everything to smart contracts. That also efficiently, without any possibility of any misconduct, right? And another example, so there has been a network of banks all around the world. What they do is for their daily money markets, let's say one bank needs a loan from another bank. Normally what they used to do is they call or they email each other for the right kind of procedure or complete, security.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we send email, we get request, we accept.
So talking about trade finance backed by smart contract thing.
Exactly. So this is what I was coming at. So money markets and trade finance, now what happens is rather than going through email or phone calls, you just click on a smart contract, other bank accepts it, smart contracts move the funds with all the conditions and contracts in between in a second.
Fantastic.
That's the kind of power that blockchain has for the banking sector. And the current CBDC scenario that we are seeing, again, another example.
So since we're talking about trade finance, not even the buyer and seller is involved. My bank and your bank is also involved, and that same route can be completed with the help of blockchain and smart contracts. Thank you so much, Herman, for talking to us and giving your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. You spoke really well about asset tokenization. You gave a lot of examples as far as the entire ecosystem is concerned, how this tokenization is going to be a big game changer as far as the common man or maybe the B2B or B2C is concerned. Thank you so much for giving your time. It was pleasure having you on 3.0 TV. Thank you, Arman.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Pleasure being here.